Hello and welcome to Inside Sports. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. We have an excellent show for you today. As former NFL player and St. Louis and Isaac Byrd joins me in studio to discuss his career and how he's spending his life after his playing days. Plus, I will go into the trenches of the Edward Jones Dome to bring you exclusive up-close footage of behind-the-scenes action during a game in which the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers came to town. Bess will drop by to discuss how a certain athletic league is bridging friendships between cops and urban kids. And I had a chance to celebrate the life of Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Yogi Berra at his former home on the Hill in South St. Louis. So stick around for this and much more coming up next on Inside Sports. Well, part of the duties of having an Emmy Award-winning sports show is finding your way into the center of the action and developing your own stories when you're working major events. In 2015, the six-time Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers made their way to St. Louis to take on the Rams. And right now, I'm going to show you a whole new element and viewpoint from an NFL game, one that takes place through the lens of my camera. Let's take a look. In 2015, the mighty Pittsburgh Steelers came to the Edward Jones Dome in downtown St. Louis. This is the scene as team captains are ready for the coin toss. After the coin toss, the Steelers players migrated toward their sideline in front of Steelers fans who understand that trophies are earned and not given. All-Pro wide receiver Antonio Brown was excited about the game. The Rams cheerleaders kept the restless crowd engaged during a long delay to start the contest because of issues with the AstroTurf being burned during the fireworks celebration. And ground crews attempted to get the field playable, while the two head coaches, Jeff Fisher and Mike Tomlin, look on in disbelief as grounds crew shot back the field. While the officials develop a restart plan, the coaches remain lighthearted.
It's funny, they backed and they came out with it.
While the national media was getting their explanation for the delay, Ben Roethlisberger and teammates eagerly anticipate the opportunity to take the field. But in the NFL, dreams can be crushed in an instant. And moments into the contest, Big Ben is carted off the field with a knee injury. In the end, the Steelers hold on for a tough win against the Rams and salute the camera shots before post-game TV interviews. Former Super Bowl hero James Harrison stoically struts off the field with pride, while running back D'Angelo Williams and Mike Tomlin leave the field arm in arm, while former West Virginia teammates Tavon Austin and Pittsburgh linebacker Terrence Garvin catch up on old times. All-Pros Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown appreciate the huge contingent of Steelers fans who made the trek to St. Louis and reward them with selfies while enjoying the victory. Ben Roethlisberger left the stadium on crutches and would miss a month of action. Ladies and gentlemen, the view behind the scenes from the camera of Todd Blackstock. Any early diagnosis on the leg? Nothing. Our first guest today is no stranger to the NFL. In fact, he started for the Tennessee Titans in Super Bowl 34 against the St. Louis Rams. While in high school, he won all-state honors at Parkway Central in football and baseball and was heralded as the best athlete to come out of Missouri in 25 years by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He starred in football and baseball at Kansas and was drafted by the St. Louis Baseball Cardinals. He later returned to KU and was eventually drafted into the NFL. He enjoyed a solid 6-year NFL career with the Titans and the Carolina Panthers. At this time, we'd like to welcome Isaac Byrd to Inside Sports. Isaac, thanks for joining me, bud.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, we're coming out of this, we saw the bits down at the Dome, and when you played in the NFL, did you ever take selfies on the field with fans after a game?
No, not at all. That's my first time I've ever seen that. But, you know, that's whole selfie thing is kind of the thing to do now. I even saw LeBron James doing a preseason game take a couple selfies with fans, so it's kind of a thing to do now.
So that's like the in vogue thing going on right now. That's funny. You know, and in the game, you know, we saw the part, you know, they're doing the coin toss. There's Roethlisberger and Laurinaitis, and those guys are all talking and joking around, getting ready for a big match. Minutes later, Roethlisberger's being carted off, you know, with a sprained MCL. And in the NFL and in football, JFL, college, high school, pro, injuries can happen at any time, can't they?
Yeah, it really don't matter what level you're playing at. It really don't matter. If you play the game long enough, sooner or later you're going to get hurt. You just hopefully that it's not a season-ending injury or a career-ending injury. whenever you're dealing with knees and ankles and things like that, it's unfortunate. Unfortunate what happened to Roethlisberger and Pittsburgh, but I think he's going to be back this week.
Oh, yeah. And so, Isaac, in high school, you were one of my all-time favorite players. I remember watching you in the state game back with Parkway Central. You guys actually lost the game.
Yeah, I know.
But you were all over the field as like a man boy, and nobody could catch you, nobody could do anything. But you love football, and baseball was your true love, though, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And that state game is one of the best state games. I still hear people talk about that game today. We lost 39 to 35 up to Blue Springs. But yes, baseball is actually my favorite sport. Growing up playing baseball, I was actually too skinny to play football. My mom wouldn't let me play until I got into high school. So I didn't really start playing organized football until I got into high school, but I played baseball my entire life, and it's still my favorite sport to even watch and play today.
And then you played basketball as well in high school
Yes.
and had a little success with that as well.
Absolutely. I love playing basketball with Coach Kirby at Parkway Central. And it was fun. It was one of those things that really kept me in shape during the off season before baseball.
Now, around those times, that was during the DSEG
Yes.
era in football and high school sports. So things are transforming. Some of the county schools and private schools, Catholic schools, they were kind of starting to go after some of the city kids and, to improve their football and sports programs, but also to get the kids an education. Did you go through the DSEG program?
Absolutely. When I was a kid, not just me, but my entire family, my brothers and my sister, we were bused from North City, St. Louis, out to Parkway Central every morning. And I went to Riverbend grade school and then Parkway Central High School. So, my mom just wanted us to have a better opportunity to have a better education, and it worked out great for us.
So how was it like logistically? I mean, did you have to get up a little bit earlier in the morning, and then at the end of the day, what time did you get home? And was it hard to study and things like that?
It was actually a little tough because, yes, you had to get up really early in the morning just to catch the bus, because the bus would not only pick you up, but pick up other kids around the city before they make the trip out from the city to the county out to Parkway Central. And then, I played sports. So after school, it was also practice. So after practice, then you would get on a bus again and get bused all the way back to the city, back home. And we probably wouldn't get home till 7:30 every single day.
So it's a quick turnaround, then you got to go to bed and be right back up.
Yeah, you got to study, you got to eat, you got to go to bed and get right back up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Did you study on the bus? Was that an option?
Absolutely.
Or was it too rowdy on the bus?
No, I mean, you have to find time to really study on the bus, not just going home, but in the morning going to school, because there was just not a lot of time when it comes to getting home, eating, maybe watching some TV, relaxing, then studying, doing your homework, then going to bed. Then when you woke up, and then you got on your clothes and ate breakfast. When you got on the bus, you had like a 45-minute bus ride going around the city, picking up other kids before you go back out to the county, and you use that time to study as well.
We talk about sealing the borders for the University of Missouri in football. Well, you're one of the best athletes. Post-Dispatch said you were one of the greatest athlete in 25 years to come out of Missouri. And that's a pretty special thing. So why did you pick KU over the University of Missouri, or was that even an option? Or what were some of the schools going after you, and why KU?
Well, that's a great question because I wanted to stay in the Big 12. I grew up loving the Big 12. Actually, it was the Big 8, if you remember at that time. It was the Big 8, and I grew up loving the Big 8, and I wanted to stay in the area where my parents can come and also watch me play football and play sports. So yes, every school in the Big 8 was recruiting me, and it really came down at the end of the day to Colorado and Kansas after I'd taken my recruiting visits. And I just felt that Kansas was a great fit for me. They were a team, they were a school with a coaching staff. I loved the coaching staff. They were kind of rebuilding the program, and I wanted to be a part of a program that was kind of on the rebuild and be a part of something new. And that's the biggest reason why I chose down other schools like Colorado and Nebraska and Oklahoma, who also recruited me. But those schools already, big-time schools in football, highly ranked, and I wanted to be a part of something that was growing.
Something building, and plus they were cool enough to let you play baseball. Not everybody does that.
And that's a great point because that's one of the reasons why I did not go to Colorado, because Colorado did not offer a baseball program.
Really?
Absolutely. So, they also allowed me to play baseball, which I loved because that was a part of the deal. If wherever I was going to go, I was going to play two sports, and I knew that football was going to be my scholarship because that's a full ride scholarship, and baseball is also partial scholarship. So I knew that football was going to get me the full ride, but I was going to need to play baseball as well, and Kansas allowed me to
And
do that.
then during your career at Kansas, you got drafted by a pretty special baseball team, didn't you?
It was a dream come true because I always wanted to play in Busch Stadium. That was at Cardinal Stadium, that was my dream growing up. I want to be the center fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then when I got the call that they drafted me out of Kansas my junior year, I was like, there's no way I can turn this down. So I actually went off. I left school for a year and went to the St. Louis minor league system and played for a year. And they were lucky enough I was lucky enough where they allowed me to go back to school and finish there. And then I was then drafted into the NFL.
So you got, I read somewhere where you hit like 300 in the minor leagues, and then you still ended up. What made you want to go back to football? Was it to get your degree or to try to maybe get drafted in the NFL?
It was both, really. And I just didn't know at that time that I wanted to give up football completely. So I knew I had 1 year of eligibility left. So just with talking to the Cardinal organization, and they say, you know what, you want to go back and play football and finish out, go right ahead, and we'll welcome you back when you're done. So I went back and played football, and then I was drafted. And I wasn't Bo Jackson, I wasn't Deion Sanders. So I had to really make a choice on which way I wanted to go. And luckily for me, when I was drafted by the Chiefs, they was actually going to allow me to play both before I went to Tennessee, and then that kind of ended my baseball career.
No kidding. And you ended up with the Tennessee Titans, playing in the Super Bowl, and playing for current St. Louis Rams head coach Jeff Fisher. What was that like? How'd you end up getting the call to Tennessee, and what was that experience like?
That experience was excellent, actually. I really, really loved my time in Tennessee. I spent 3 years there and 3 years in Carolina. But my time in Tennessee, I thought was special. We had a really, really close core group of guys. And the leadership from the top to the bottom with the players, I thought were awesome. And the coaching staff was awesome. I was with Coach Fisher and, of course, Greg Williams, who's the defensive coordinator for the Rams right now. We had an excellent coaching staff, and the experience was just one that I can never forget. And, Coach went to the Super Bowl, ended up losing to the Rams, but that was another experience, playing in the Super Bowl, being a starter, and playing against your hometown team was just a dream come true.
That's got to be amazing. Before that game, going into that game, I think, was it the Music City Miracle?
Yes.
That happened. And
Against
you
Buffalo.
guys, and that happened, and then all of a sudden you're in the Super Bowl against the Rams, and that's your home team.
Yes.
Before the game, what was going on through your mind, and throughout that game, was it kind of cool playing against because you didn't really grow up as a Rams fan. It was the St. Louis football Cardinals.
Exactly.
So now you're an NFL player. What was it like to play in a Super Bowl and actually start against your home team?
It was actually crazy when it comes to my family. I had like 16 family members come up to that game, and everyone, of course, loved the Rams and was cheering for the Rams, but of course, they wanted me to do well as well. So during the game, so that was fun, that different dynamic. And if you remember, we actually played the Rams earlier in the year, and we beat them at our place. And so playing them was a familiar feeling. But it was just really a dream come true. But when the game starts, it was really just a game. I know there's a lot of hoopla around. It's the Super Bowl, but when a game starts, it's really just a game. But the most memorable experience of the Super Bowl that I had was actually standing in the tunnel, waiting for my name to be called to run out on the field. That was unlike any experience that I can remember. It was great just to stand there and think about all the times that you had when I was a kid growing up. To actually get to that point was special.
Well, then you ended up with the Carolina Panthers, finished your career, and then you've moved on. You've done a lot of great things since then.
Yes.
I know you're doing some broadcasting locally, some high school football games.
Yes.
You've done a lot of radio and TV gigs and things, and you're also an author.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing in your post-game career?
Absolutely. First of all, I do a sports talk radio show on 89.5 The Wave on Wednesday mornings. So it's all NFL. And I also wrote a book, and the book is really based around the mental aspects of sports. Nothing come to do with the physical aspects, really the mental, how to prepare your mind mentally. I was really big in that, and I thought that was really, really important. And I've done a lot of speaking at different corporations and associations and high schools and colleges. I own a business now where we train athletes on the mental aspects of sports. It's B3 Mental Training. It's on my website at isaacbyrd.com. And it's me, a sports psychologist and a neuropsychologist. And we come into different high schools and different camps and colleges, mostly in Georgia and Florida, and we train kids and athletes on the mental aspects of sports and the different principles that are in my book, which is Unlocking the Minds of Athletes.
Unlocking the Mind of Athletes.
Yes.
That is wonderful. Isaac, thanks a lot for joining us. I had the opportunity to broadcast some high school football game with you, and you've been on my radio show before as well. And you're just a great guy all around, and it looks like you'd still play. Before we let you go, do you have any advice you could give some young kids this day that might want to play football, baseball, basketball? If you had it to do all over again right now, knowing everything you know now
Yes.
about injuries, concussions, everything,
Yes.
what would you say to a youngster trying to play professional sports?
Well, what I would tell kids growing up nowadays, a lot of things is about specializing in one sport. That's not the way I grew up. I grew up of playing many different sports as long as you can until you really find out which one you wanted to do. Now, in my situation, I ended up going off to college and playing both sports, and I made that decision later. But don't just play football. Play baseball, play basketball. Do a lot of different sports in the summer times as well. Try to get on some summer league teams. And, it builds more than just your athletic ability. Sports builds character. It teaches you how to work with different people, different cultures, and things of that nature. So sports is a great avenue for kids to get into something and do it extremely well.
Fantastic. And as a former star baseball player, do you have one 10-second comment you could give us about Yogi Berra?
Oh, what a great player, a great athlete. Loved him here in St. Louis. He's going to be dearly missed.
Dearly missed, and he recently passed away. And
Yes.
And speaking of Yogi Berra, we're going to thank you first, Isaac. Thank you very much. But speaking of Yogi Berra, let's head over to the hill right now, where I had a chance to see Yogi's old house, which is now occupied by his niece, Mary Frances. Let's take a look. What are your first memories as a child of Yogi in this house?
Well, I have a lot of memories, but my grandma and grandpa, if you want to get started from there, they were immigrants and came over from Italy and with an arranged marriage. And Uncle Yogi and my mom and the other three brothers were actually born. Midwives came to the house and they were born in the house. Besides that, and then my mom had 5 of us, and I took over the house, which I love it. And my childhood memories of Uncle Yogi were when he managed the Mets. My favorite story is I went to school right around the corner at Shaw, and me and my little brother came home for lunch, and the whole Mets team was sitting at our dining room table eating all salami and Italian bread and everything. And they put us up on their laps, and we begged not to go to school, but we wanted to sign autographs. So we got pieces of paper and tore them up, and Uncle Yogi would sign them, and the Mets players, and I take them back to school and thought I was really neat, and to hand them out.
He probably wishes he could have been signed by the St. Louis Cardinals, but the Yankees thought maybe he was a little bit more important than the Cardinals did.
Yes, because the Cardinals only offered him $250 and offered Joe Garagiola $500 at the time. So the Yankees came back and offered Uncle Yogi the $500. They came to the door and said, "We'd like to sign your son up for the Yankees, for $500." And Uncle Yogi looks at Grandpa and says, "Pops, could we afford that?" Thinking that they had to pay the Yankees team so Uncle Yogi could play. And that's a true story. So that's what.
There's a couple great Yogi-isms. One of the ones I thought was funny was the one with the fork in the road. Can you tell us that one?
Yes. Where they lived in New Jersey, in Montclair, New Jersey, there was a fork in the road. So when he was given directions, he'd tell someone, when you get to the fork in the road, take it. So that's how that came. And now, I don't know if you've heard, but up there in New Jersey, and I saw for myself, at the fork in that road where he lived, they have a big rock, and they named the street Yogi Lane, and it has a big rock and it's all engraved, and it says, "Here's the fork in the road, take it." And then it's got Yogi Berra on it. It's really neat.
Needless to say, Yogi's memorials were well attended.
The Cardinal was there. Cardinal Dolan, who is from St. Louis, spoke at the Mass up in New Jersey. And all the Yankees team was there. So they were all there, the old and the young, the older guys and the younger guys was there. Joe Torre spoke at the memorial up in New Jersey, he did an amazing job.
In St. Louis, another service was held at St. Ambrose on the Hill, where family members and friends from around the country gathered. Mary Frances has grand plans for Yogi's former home on Hall of Fame Place.
I am thinking about opening up a bed and breakfast, and I will have it all baseball memorabilia of the Yankees and the Cardinals, and then my family history. There's 3 rooms that I'd like to rent out. I think people will really enjoy coming by, spending the night in the house that Uncle Yogi grew up in, and where Joe Gargiola grew up across the street, and Jack Buck down the street, and they played ball all the time out on the streets, and it's a lot of fun. I got a lot of stories for people when they come and visit.
And while Yogi played and coached in New York, he'll always be remembered as a St. Louisan, and his family legacy continues on the Hill. Well, joining us now in studio is the Director of Parks and Recreations for St. Louis County, Mr. Gary Bess. Gary, how are you?
Todd, very good.
You know, nice of you to join us today. Now, you're the Director in St. Louis County now, but you held that title here in the city of St. Louis for many, many years.
Right, I was fortunate enough to have the job as Park Director and served for 18 years under 3 different mayors. So pretty good experience, and had a lot of fun.
Now, your segue from the city to the county was pretty smooth. I would say it's seamless at that, since you left the city of St. Louis and retired in December 31st of a year, and then on that same day, Steve Stanger brought you into the St. Louis County. So nice seamless transition there for you.
Yeah, I was jobless for almost 12 hours, so I'm extremely happy to be with the county. The jobs are very similar, and at the end of the day, it's all about green space, and it's all about kids and providing opportunity. So I've been very fortunate to have 2 great jobs where hopefully we have a lot of impact on the people who use our parks and participate in our sporting activities.
You know, I'm sure there's probably a lot more parks in the county as opposed to the city, I would assume. But as director in the city, you know, a lot of people don't know that Forest Park is bigger than the park in New York City. And that's pretty amazing, because everybody thinks of New York, Central Park, and they don't realize that Forest Park is actually bigger than Central Park in New York.
Right, Central Park in New York is about 850 acres. Forest Park, depending on whose numbers you're using, is about 1,320 acres. So it's significantly larger than Central Park. It's the home of basically all of our cultural institutions. So there's a lot of activity outside of Forest Park just being green space. It's a home to our art museum, the zoo, history museum, Muni Opera. It's a place where people from throughout the St. Louis region, city and county, have learned to come together and have fun.
Well, today we want to talk to you about the Police Athletic League. It's coined PAL, and you're the president of this league. And basically, from what I gather, it helps bridge a gap between police officers and inner city urban youth that may not call police their friends when they're growing up. Can you tell us about the Police Athletic League?
Yeah, Police Athletic League #1 is a national organization. It's in cities throughout the United States. Probably the largest chapter is in New York. The budget for the Police Athletic League in New York is $29 million. Unbelievable. That's larger than the entire budget for the City of St. Louis Park Division. Wow. So they love their PAL in New York. But we love it here in St. Louis. It's really building on sports. When I was a kid, you played sports because, #1, it was fun, but it was also character building. If you played a sport, if you committed yourself to going to practice, if you committed yourself to doing better, it kept you out of trouble. It got you involved in healthy activities with other people with similar likes, and it helped you become a better person. Better man, a better woman. PAL is built on that concept, where not only do we want to build character through sports, we also want to introduce the police as a mentor, being a coach or a manager of a team. So the kids learn that the policeman isn't the bad guy. He's there to help them, to work with them, to assist them, not only in sports, but in other issues they might have in their day-to-day life.
Now, you guys, the Police Athletic League, you actually you take care of the tuition and and the sponsorship and the travel of these kids, don't you?
Yeah, the Police Athletic League is a not-for-profit. It receives absolutely no public funds. So we rely on donations from people throughout the St. Louis area in order to raise the money to fund teams. This year we have about 700 kids involved in 5 or 6 different sports, and we have about 40 coaches working with these kids. It's a labor of love, if you will, but it's one that I think pays some benefits to the kids and also to the policemen who serve as the coaches and mentors and managers of these teams.
Now the policemen get some incentives as well. I mean, the kids, they've got to kind of apply for this to get involved with it. And from what I understand, you get a clean slate when you start. As far as the police, there's an incentive for them to do this as well.
Right. The police department gives all of the policemen who participate 2 extra vacation days a year. But if you've coached before, and if anybody who's coached knows that 16 hours doesn't really cover the time you invest. So these officers are really doing it because it's something they enjoy doing, and it's their way of giving back to the community and to the kids.
Tell us, so we got a couple minutes left, tell us about the sports and how the program works, how you can apply the ages, and then this is a loaded question. And then I'm going to ask you about the boxing team, which gets to go on some fun trips.
Right. First of all, we service kids age 5 to 18. The sports that we have are all competitive: boxing, boxing, baseball, basketball, softball. You have to try out for the team. We try to find a spot for everybody. The Police Athletic League pays for uniforms, travel, entry fees in the leagues, food while you're on trips, and our teams have been very successful. Our track team is probably one of the best amateur teams in the country. Last year we sent 22 members of our track team to the national competition in San Antonio. So it's extremely popular. Our boxing program is one of the best in the country and definitely one of the best in the region. We work at a 12th and Park Recreation Center. It's a Spartan gym, if you will, but it's the kind of gyms you saw if you ever saw the movie Rocky. It's built for go, not for show. The kids work hard, they do a good job, and the success shows in the championships the Pale kids have won.
Yeah, and St. Louis Police Colonel Jerry Layshock does a great job with that program as well. Before we let you go, what's the criteria to do it? Because I know there's really no background checks, but in able to stay in this program, certain things have to happen.
Right. We encourage kids to do well in life and in school. We check their report cards, we check their attendance. If they get in trouble, the coach intervenes and tries to problem solve and get the kids back on the right track. Get them back in the gym, get them back in the basketball court. The things that make a difference.
And what's the motto?
We build playgrounds, not prisons.
Build playgrounds, not prisons. Any contact information if anybody out there watching this show would like to get involved?
Our PAL liaison is Officer Jody Risk. Her phone number is 444-5967.
444-5967.
You got it.
Thank you very much, Gary, for joining us here at Inside Sports, and congratulations on being president of the Police Athletic League and continued success with all the parks around Missouri.
Thank you, sir.
How's that? Well, that's our show for today. We'd especially like to thank Isaac Byrd and Gary Bess for stopping by the studio. And make sure you check out the next edition of Experience St. Louis, the magazine, where you can see my article on the Police Athletic League in print. I would like to thank the St. Louis Rams, and a big shout out to Yogi Berra's niece, Mary Frances, for opening up her home and her heart to me to preserve Yogi's legacy. You can catch this episode on Charter Channel 992 or go to STL TV Experience St. Louis and click on Inside Sports. I'm Todd Blackstock. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.